The tale begins in a high school where our MC, Akazuki Hodaka, a 17-year-old student, calls out to Shishizaki Chihaya, pondering how profoundly she has transformed his life. Brimming with emotion, he bows deeply and professes his love, earnestly asking for a chance to be by her side. As he remains bowed, a sense of relief washes over him, knowing he's finally spoken his heart. To his astonishment, after a brief moment of surprise, Shishizaki gently accepts his feelings and asks him to cherish her. A week later, as Shishizaki strolls through the school corridor, Akazuki and his friends admire her from a classroom window. They marvel at her charm, commenting on how effortlessly she captivates everyone. Akazuki admits he's still awestruck by her effect on others and shares that he pinches his cheeks daily to ensure it's not just a dream. While they talk about her, Shishizaki senses someone watching her and turns to meet Akazuki's gaze. Blushing, she adjusts her hair and waves at him. Akazuki, equally flustered, shyly waves back, his heart fluttering with every moment. After waving, he instantly feels helpless, wondering if she's just too adorable or if it's something else. His friend, noticing his overwhelmed state, encourages him to get a grip, joking that his brain might be frying from overstimulation. Taking a deep breath, Hodaka blushes and pinches his cheeks again, unable to believe how much he loves her. Just looking at her fills him with joy. During lunch, Hodaka walks quietly through the corridor when Shishizaki suddenly taps his shoulder, loudly wishing him a good day. Startled, he turns to see her apologizing with a sad expression, not wanting to have scared him. His shock quickly fades into happiness as he reassures her that any surprise from her is a welcome one. With a hopeful smile, she invites him to lunch in an empty classroom while she prepares supplies for the second year. Delighted, Hodaka agrees, suggesting they finish quickly so they can enjoy their meal together. She shyly thanks him while holding onto his sleeve, her face blushing. Seeing her like this makes Hodaka blush as well, and he feels like crying with happiness because of how deeply he loves her. In the classroom, they both work together to clean and organize the space, making it perfect for the second years. Afterward, they sit down to eat their lunch with chopsticks. As Hodaka watches her, he thinks that even while eating, she looks stunning. Blushing, she looks at him and shares that being in the classroom together reminds her of their first meeting. At first, Hodaka is confused by her sudden remark, but then he smiles, recalling that day at the end of April. He remembers sitting alone in the classroom, focused on his studies when the room suddenly went dark. Looking around, he realized there was no one else there and had no idea what was happening. When he looked outside the window, he saw that the entire area, not just the school, was dark. It was a blackout. Deciding to head to the teacher's room, he was surprised to find the door locked. As a member of the beautification committee, he often stayed after school, but that day he was stuck in a darkened building with no way to contact anyone because, following school rules, he had left his phone in his locker with the shoe cubbies. As he considered returning to the teacher's office, he reassured himself that someone would come by eventually since it was a school, but part of him feared that no one might arrive until the morning. Just then, Shishizaki appeared, looking just as scared. With great hesitation, she asked him why everything was dark. Hodaka explained his guess that it was a blackout, but without his phone, he couldn't be sure. Hearing this, she left with a sad expression. Hodaka sat down and pondered to pass the time by working on his paperwork, but he was still uneasy. The moonlight wasn't bright enough for him to work near the window. As he was lost in thought, he was startled when Shishizaki returned, asking if she could stay with him until the lights came back. Nervous but kind, he permitted her to stay. They sat on the floor at a considerable distance from each other, and the silence was intense. It was incredibly awkward. Neither of them said a word, and Hodaka, not knowing anything about her, felt very nervous. This was the first time he was alone with a girl. Shishizaki was also nervous, shifting slightly, and the silence was so complete that he could hear the fabric of her uniform as she moved. He found this a bit odd, and when she finally spoke, her voice was shaky. She suggests playing shiratori, a word game where each word must start with the last syllable of the previous one. As they play, Hodaka finds her voice soothing, like a melody stuck in his mind, surprising himself with how much he enjoys just listening to her. While they played, she mentioned that as they grew older, the game could go on indefinitely, and Hodaka jokingly replied that her vocabulary would also expand with age. She explained some game rules that often caused her to lose, which he agreed were a bit unfair. As they continued talking, Hodaka noticed that Shishizaki seemed to be smiling, though he couldn't see clearly in the darkness. Yet the thought of her being happy made him happy too, even though she was still a stranger to him. She asked him why he was there so late, to which he explained that as a member of the beautification committee, he was taking inventory of the desks and other items. During their conversation, he discovered that she was also a member of the committee in the same year of class. Their conversation, much like their shiratory game, meandered without much meaning, yet they pieced together a flow of words. They discussed their quirky English teacher, and she playfully suggested that he shouldn't be so polite since they were classmates. As they talked, he selfishly wished the lights would never return, knowing that their conversation would end if they did. They even chatted about the furor cake in the cafeteria, and when he mentioned he liked axolotls, she laughed sweetly. He shared that he once kept one but didn't remember much about it now. Sitting beside her, he found her laughter adorable, and their conversation turned to Horsedales. She sorrowfully mentioned she hadn't seen one since preschool, so he promised to show her one if he ever found it. She then stood up and gazed out the window, urging him to join her. As they looked at the sky, filled with brilliant stars shining brightly in the darkness, he was captivated by its beauty. She admired the stars as well, and just as he was about to declare it the most beautiful night he ever seen, a flash of light signaled the return of power, bringing an end to their enchanting moment. They exchanged smiles, faces flushed, and she complimented his appearance, feeling reassured as she looked at him. They shared a laugh, thanked each other for the evening, and waved good night. On his way home, lost in thought, he reflected that the night had been fun despite unexpected events. Hearing the rustling of plants, he noticed a horsetail and quickly took a picture, remembering Shishizaki's enthusiasm for it. However, he realized that he might never see her again since he didn't know her name, questioning the purpose of the photo. After days of determined effort, he finally uncovered that her name was Shishizaki, a well-known figure even admired as an idol in their grade. As he delved deeper, he found it hard to believe she was the same girl he had connected with in the dark, as she seemed so different from the person he had spoken to. Consumed by thoughts of her, he became so distracted by love that during the same English lecture, he found himself mindlessly comparing the professor to a bulldog instead of paying attention. On his way home, he paused on a bridge, staring at the water and wondering if he saw a goldfish or koi, but in truth, he felt deeply sad. Though they had been brought together by chance and were strangers for a fleeting moment, as he gazed at the star-filled sky, he confessed to himself that he still longed to see her again. Before he even realized it, something had fundamentally changed within him. A few days later, during a beautification committee meeting, where the teacher provided instructions, he was fortunate to see her in the corridor since she was also a member. The moment she saw him, she became nervous due to her disheveled appearance, but with a blush, she thanked him for keeping her company that night. Seeing her made his heart race intensely, echoing his deep feelings, and he wondered how he could ever return to a world without her. So at the present time, after cleaning the classroom and finishing their lunch, all reminiscing about their first meeting, he confesses that sitting together like this feels strange, but makes him genuinely happy. She looks at him in surprise, admitting she feels the same way. Looking down with a sad expression, she tells him there's something she's been wanting to say for a while. As he watches her, he becomes tense, sensing the seriousness of the moment. With a heavy heart, she admits that when he confessed his love before, rather than a straightforward agreement, she intended to share her true emotions. He looks at her, growing more anxious as he tries to understand what she's about to reveal. Clutching her shirt nervously, she explains that she liked him first. Seeing his confusion, she further clarifies, blushing and clearly nervous, that on that night, during their conversation in the dark, despite her unease with the situation, she didn't want it to end because she had grown fond of him. As he listens, he finds her confession incredibly endearing. Hesitantly, she confesses that when he confessed, she should have said she liked him too, but instead she only said okay, leaving her feeling like she had deceived him all along. Blushing and slightly irked, he insists she didn't deceive him, despite her initial acceptance, and this new confession making him doubly happy. With heartfelt determination, he places his hand on chest and admits he was the first to harbor feelings for her. Both insist on their declarations, and their playful stubbornness soon erupts in laughter. He apologizes for his persistence, while she teases him, claiming she was definitely the one who liked him first. As they laugh and bicker, their hearts race with intense emotion. With tender affection, Hodaka places his hand on her face, leaning in for a gentle peck. However, she abruptly apologizes, pushes him away, and stands up, claiming she must prepare classrooms for the next year's students. Without looking back at his confused and anxious expression, she thanks him and quickly exits, sliding and closing the door behind her with a sharp click. With his heart racing, he remains alone in the classroom, bewildered by her sudden departure. Distracted and distressed, he abandons his lectures, leaving the school with a heavy heart. Back in the classroom, he throws his bag down and slams the door, tormented by confusion. He questions whether the timing or place was wrong, or if he made a mistake. Doubts swirl in his mind. Perhaps he should have asked before making a move or avoided doing so in the classroom. His frustration mounts as he struggles to pinpoint what went awry. Even at home, he tosses and turns, haunted by the fear that his actions might have driven her away. The thought of not having her in his life is unbearable. Saturday came with no school and no messages from Shishizaki-san. For the first time, he felt the urge to call someone out, but he held it in. The weekend passed in a blur. After the weekend, he stumbles unsteadily to school, clutching his bag, clearly exhausted from a restless night. His heart has never felt so twisted before, leaving him both disoriented and bewildered, unsure of how to mend the situation. Upon arriving at school, he is visibly puzzled when Shishizaki, beaming with a smile, waves and greets him with a cheerful good morning. Her presence immediately eases his worries, and he is captivated by her charm. Apologizing for his earlier behavior, he admits that pretending nothing happened isn't enough. Skipping their first period, they sit on the stairs, where Shishizaki, with a troubled expression, asks if he wants to discuss Friday. He acknowledges her concern and inquires if the touch was unsettling for her. After receiving no response, he lowers his head, reflecting on his actions with a heavy heart. To ease his guilt, he earnestly assures her that, regardless of whether she desires intimacy, dating, or anything else, he will respect her feelings and do his best to honor them. As he is about to say more, she suddenly grabs his sleeves with a mix of confusion and intensity, exclaiming that she does want to be close to him. Seeing his stunned expression, she quickly blushes and corrects herself, revealing that she truly wants to be with him and is excited about their new relationship. She shyly admits that she wants to be affectionate with him now that they are a couple. Listening to her with flushed cheeks, he expresses his gratitude. She then, with a downcast expression, worries that something important might change if they continue. Initially puzzled, he reassures her with a comforting smile, saying that his love for her remains steadfast no matter what. She thanks him sincerely for his reassurance. With deep respect, he asks her to let him know when she feels ready for a loving touch. Seeing her smile in agreement, he lowers his head onto his hands, sighing with relief. He admits he was terrified she might hate him for Friday's touch, and felt lifeless over the weekend. Touched by his heartfelt confession, she embraces him tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. Feeling her so close, his heart races and love fills his eyes as he restrains himself from embracing her, respecting her wish. He feels enveloped in warmth and is almost unaware of her touch. As he asks for permission to take a breath, she gently tells him he doesn't need her permission for that. As he embraces her, the scent of her fills him with joy, melting away all his anxieties. He marvels at how someone so special can affect his heart so deeply. After school, they walk home together for the first time, playfully teasing each other with flushed faces and laughing as they chat. When Hodaka notices a little girl sitting sadly on the busy road, searching for something, he feels concern for her safety amid the traffic. Together, they decide to check on her. When they inquire, the girl tearfully explains that she had seen a taped-up cat carrier in a pile of garbage with a kitten inside. She had rushed home to get scissors, but by the time she returned, the trash had been cleared away. Hearing this, Hodaka quickly scans the road and spots some garbage trucks. The girl sadly points out that the carrier with the kitten is still in the truck. Seeing the girl's distress, Hodaka reassures them that he will chase down the truck and asks Shichizuki to stay with the little girl. As he sprints after the truck, he reflects on how his previous self would never have made such a public display. His rapid breathing from the sprint makes him realize that falling in love with Shichizuki and knowing she likes him gives him the courage to act fearlessly. He is astonished by his own emotions, feeling braver and more capable whenever he is with her. Hodaka rushes to the truck, knocks on the glass door, and requests a moment to speak. The truck driver, confused but compliant, asks him to be quick. Once granted permission, Hodaka inspects the bag and is disheartened to find it heavily compressed and buried under a pile of garbage. With a heavy heart, he fears the worst for the kitten inside and contemplates telling the girls it was a mistaken bag. As he walks away, he struggles with the decision, feeling unable to discard it, and both girls notice him still holding the bag. Both girls eagerly rush toward him, shouting with excitement upon seeing the bag in his hands. Handing it to Shichizaki, he casually explains that the kitten was hiding in a nearby planter and managed to get out on its own. As he opens the bag, he looks puzzled to find it empty. Shishizaki then directs his attention to the little girl, who is now holding a tiny, adorable kitten that had emerged from the bag. Seeing the kitten alive, he collapses to the ground, overwhelmed with tears of joy, relieved that the little cat is safe. Shishizaki, moved by his reaction, sits beside him and offers a comforting hand. Her touch brings him a soothing warmth, and he discreetly wipes away his tears. He marvels at how her presence has ignited a profound and passionate feeling within him, one he never would have experienced without her. As they bid farewell to the little girl and head home, they share the relief that the kitten is unharmed. Shishizaki praises his bravery for rushing to the truck, to which he responds that her presence has transformed him. He explains that without her, he might not have even noticed the girl, let alone felt compelled to help. While admiring the sunset, he reflects on how, when alone, he merely saw the sun setting. But with her beside him, he notices the sun's golden light illuminating the clouds, brightening the city, and casting their shadows, with hers slightly shorter than his. He concludes that all these newfound wonders are thanks to her being by his side. He pauses, gazing into her eyes, and once more declares how profoundly she has transformed his life, expressing his gratitude for her presence. His face reddens as he speaks, and when he sees her blushing and filled with affection, he is puzzled by her request for a caress. She misinterprets his hesitation, thinking he doesn't want to touch her, but he quickly reassures her that's not the case. They share a meaningful look, and as he gently holds her shoulders, he bestows a tender kiss upon her. Reflecting on how meeting her has brightened his world, he feels that everything has changed for the better. She gazes back at him with deep affection and emotion, touched by his words. Afterward, she gazes at him with a mix of worry and confusion. Sensing her concern, he smiles and asks if something seems off about his appearance. However, he's puzzled as well, noticing his voice has become more feminine. Suddenly, he realizes his entire body has transformed into that of a girl, complete with long hair. Shocked, he looks in a mirror and asks her if he really appears to be a girl now. Shishizaki, with a nervous expression and beads of sweat on her face, apologizes and informs him that the transformation happened because of their kiss. As he struggles to comprehend the situation, still looking at her with confusion and tension, she adds that she never intended to deceive him. Bowing down, she apologizes again, admitting that she should never have allowed herself to touch him. She then reassures him that he will return to his original form and urges him to forget about her, treating this as nothing more than a dream. As she bids him goodbye and starts to leave, he quickly grabs her hand and asks her not to make that apologetic face, assuring her that he still loves her, regardless of any disadvantages. After hearing his words, she hugs him affectionately with tears in her eyes. Although puzzled, he listens as she tells him she needs to consult her family about the situation, but reassures him that he'll be fine after a day. She asks if they can meet tomorrow, and he smiles, assuring her he's okay and she shouldn't worry. They exchange smiles, wave goodbye, and head home. After arriving home, he quietly makes his way to his room, avoiding anyone's notice. As he lies on his bed, his thoughts are troubled. He puts on a brave face in front of her, but inside, he is deeply worried about his transformation into a girl. The idea of living life as someone else weighs heavily on him. He tosses and turns, unable to sleep, his body aching no matter how he positions himself, a discomfort he can't ignore. He wonders how girls manage to sleep with such a different body. Exhausted, he finally drifts off to sleep, and when he wakes up, he feels a small wave of relief as he notices he has returned to his original form, just as she promised. He immediately checks the mirror to confirm his appearance and feels much more relaxed. He wonders if it might have all been a dream, but quickly realizes it wasn't when he notices the note he posted on his door yesterday. He had done this to avoid his family seeing him in his transformed girl form. Seeing the clock and realizing it's already 9 a.m., he panics. As he scrambles to get ready for school, he worries about what to have for breakfast, noting that his father and grandfather have already left. Distracted by the urgency, he forgets about breakfast altogether and becomes increasingly frustrated, realizing that his perfect attendance record is at risk if he arrives late. Upon arriving at school, the bell rings, and as he heads to class, his friend expresses shock at his unusual lateness. In the midst of their conversation, both are puzzled when they see Shishizaki trotting down the corridor. Ignoring everyone else, she quickly approaches Hodaka, visibly relieved to see him back to normal. He looks into her eyes and thanks her sincerely. Seeing Shishizaki running towards him with a tense expression, her friend Itoha asks if everything is okay. Shishizaki, looking troubled, asks Itoha to give them a moment. Itoha, annoyed, glares at Hodaka before leaving. Hodaka's friend remarks on Itoa's glaring and playfully teases him about the challenges of being Shishizaki's boyfriend. After a way, his pal decides to leave as well. Once they are alone, he asks if she needs any help. Hesitantly, she inquires if he is free after school, and with a worried expression, invites him to her house to meet her parents. Upon hearing this, he feels anxious and starts to sweat, thinking it might be too soon. However, he calms himself, realizing that, since they are in a relationship, it's appropriate to meet her family. He mentions her father's desire to meet him, and both look tense. When they finally arrive at her house, he is astonished by its size and asks if it's really hers, as the large property stretches beyond the fence they just walked past. Her confirmation only amplifies his surprise. He is further amazed when she reveals that she never thought about it. As they slide open the door and step inside, Shishizaki announces their arrival. Hodaka's heart races with anxiety. A graceful, modern woman greets them warmly with a smile. He immediately bows and introduces himself. She acknowledges his greeting, mentions she's heard about the events from the previous day, and invites him in. Her poised demeanor suggests to Hodaka that she must be Shishizaki's mother. While sitting on the sofa in the living room, he is visibly tense, his heart racing with anxiety. He recalls Shishizaki's mention of her father wanting to meet him and worries that he might be scolded for touching his daughter. Determined to apologize, he tries to calm himself, realizing his overthinking is only increasing his anxiety. With a composed expression, he reminds himself that to stay with Shishizaki, he must face and overcome any challenges. As Hodaka is lost in thought, the door opens and again this young woman, who met him first, along with a stunning girl, enters with a meal. With a warm smile, the woman offers him strawberry-flavored tea, cautioning him that it is very hot. Grateful, Hodaka accepts the tea. As they all settle on the sofa, an awkward silence fills the room. He finally breaks the silence and asks if the young girl is Shishizaki's older sister. Her eyes sparkle with amusement, and everyone starts laughing. The elegant lady praises her for being so youthful that no one recognizes her. With a smile, she compliments Hodaka for handling the situation well, despite being a bit of a stranger. She places her tea on the table, apologizes for the delay in introductions, and introduces herself as Shishizaki Chisaki, Shishizaki Chihaya's mother. Hodaka is still in disbelief when the refined lady who greeted him earlier introduces herself as Shishizaki Ekihiro, Chihaya's father. Confused, Hodaka quickly bows and greets the family. When he realizes that the young lady is introduced as Chihaya's father, he stands up, bewildered, and exclaims loudly. The lady then shows him a picture from Chihaya's childhood, where he is with her wife. He identifies as himself. Hodaka remains puzzled, struggling to grasp the situation. Holding a cup, Chihaya's mother asks if Hodaka is in a relationship with her daughter, and if he was turned her into a girl. Realizing that the meeting is about the incident, Hodaka stands up nervously, loudly insisting that the kiss was not frivolous but occurred with serious intent. He explains that both he and Shishizaki approached the situation with utmost care. His loud, anxious explanations leave her parents and Chihaya stunned. Noticing their reaction, Hodaka then quietly asks if the purpose of the meeting is to discuss his transformation into a girl. Everyone laughs in surprise, realizing that Hodaka was more concerned about his accidental kiss than his transformation. Blushing, he apologizes for panicking since it was his first time touching a girl. He then asks about the reason behind his transformation. Her parents explain that Shishizaki's family is cursed. If any woman from their family kisses a person of the opposite gender, that person turns into a girl. They add that the transformation lasts from 2 to 24 hours. Her mother adds, with a sorrowful expression, that the curse only affects the women in the family, and when the men, like her older brother, come into contact with the opposite gender, nothing happens. As they talk, Hodaka learns that Shishizaki has an older brother. Her mother continues, explaining that despite tracing their family history back 300 years, they still have no idea where the curse originated. Finally, with a sad face, Shishizaki Chihaya speaks up, revealing that she saw her brother touch a girl without any transformation, which made her take the curse more seriously. She explains that it was hard to believe that kissing someone could turn them into a girl, even though her father is a woman. She further clarifies that, as a child, she believed in the curse, but as she grew older, she thought her father was just making excuses for his transformation. Her father looks at her seriously upon hearing this, then interrupts by explaining that he didn't believe in the curse at first either and thought it was a joke, until he came into contact with his wife. After hearing everything, Hodaka, still very confused, asks Mr. Ekihiro if there's any chance he might not be able to change back at some point. Smiling, Mr. Ekihiro reassures him that there's no precedent for that. However, with a sad expression, he asks Hodaka if seeing him in a woman's form worries him. Sensing the tension, he then inquires about Hodaka's opinion of his daughter, leaving both Chihaya and Hodaka looking at him with concerned expressions. With rosy cheeks, they exchange glances, and Hodaka starts to express his adoration for her. He praises her for being wonderfully genuine, someone who gazes into his eyes to ensure he truly understands her feelings. As he continues, he shares that when he looks into her eyes, it makes him want to be the kind of person who can match her honesty. As he speaks, she gazes at him with a flushed face, clearly touched and surprised by his words. Mr. Ekihiro chuckles sweetly when Hodaka adds that she looks utterly charming whether she's upset or joyful, finding his affection lovable. Chihaya's father, with a gentle look downward, shares how he married Chisaki despite knowing about the curse but worried about how his precious children would react to his transformation. However, he lovingly praises Chihaya for growing up to be such a mature and thoughtful sweetheart. He recalls how, during parent-teacher meetings, only her mother attended because he was too anxious about how her classmates might perceive him. Yet, Chihaya's unwavering love for her father, no matter what, truly inspired him. The next time during vaults, even though he was nervous, he attended with excitement, beaming with pride. He warmly remembers how Chihaya, with delightful confidence, performed the vault in front of everyone, completely unbothered by her father's appearance. With a fond smile, he adds that his daughter is so wonderful that he feels like he could win the lottery with her. Hodaka listens intently as Mr. Ekihiro reveals that they have a special variant of the datura plant on their property, which can erase the last 72 hours of a person's memory by disrupting electrical signals in the hippocampus. With a calm expression, he informs Hodaka that they added some of it to his tea to keep their family curse a secret. As Hodaka processes this, he becomes visibly worried and tense. Chihaya, in disbelief, shouts at her father in protest. Her mother attempts to calm her down, but Chihaya cries out that she loves Hodaka and questions why her father would erase his memory. Seeing Chihaya's increasingly tense expression, her father tries to calm her by saying it's best for both of them to part ways, as staying together would only lead to hardship and trouble. He further warns her that if she truly loves Hodaka, she should respect her parents' judgment and not fight it. Hodaka, with a heavy heart, sits silently on the sofa, contemplating the painful reality that in 72 hours he will forget all the precious moments he shared with Chihaya, including his transformation. He doesn't want to lose those memories. Just as Chihaya, sorrowful, stands to leave, he quickly grabs her hand and, with determination, asks that when he forgets everything about her, she must give him his first kiss again and go out with him. Chihaya, deeply moved, looks at him with tears in her eyes. Her parents, amazed and smiling, stand up and declare that he has won. They then reveal with a smile that there was no poison in the tea. They were simply testing him and are now convinced of his sincerity. Chizaki fondly recalls how, when Akihiro first transformed into a girl, he collapsed in tears, and she had comforted him. Akihiro, embarrassed, asks her not to share those details. Hodaka and Chihaya, still overwhelmed by all the information, remain confused. With a warm smile, Akihiro expresses his happiness that Hodaka has fallen in love with their wonderful daughter. Then, placing their hands on their knees, Chihaya's parents slightly bow and sincerely ask Hodaka to take care of their daughter, despite the family curse. Moved, Hodaka emotionally assures them that he will care for Chihaya. Later, as they walk home together at night, Chihaya apologizes for any exhaustion he might feel, but Hodaka, smiling, reassures her that he isn't tired. He's simply delighted to have met her wonderful family. As they gaze at the night sky, Chihaya shares that she is overjoyed to introduce Hodaka as a wonderful man to her family. She expresses her love for both her parents, regardless of what they think about their transformation. They pause, looking into each other's eyes, and Chihaya sweetly confesses her gratitude for his company during the blackout. With a blushing smile, she thanks him for loving her. Meanwhile, Hodaka, feeling bittersweet, thinks about how much he adores her kindness but regrets that he can't return to her world. Resolving to love her without worrying about the consequences, he makes his decision. With a smile, Chihaya playfully teases that she won't let him become a girl. Unwaveringly, Hodaka asserts that he wants to become a girl, draws her close, and gives her a tender kiss. he reassures her that his love will endure through any transformation. Even after becoming a girl, he vows to remain a deserving partner. The next day at school, Hodaka is deeply troubled after receiving a message from Chihaya about going shopping after classes. Noticing his tense expression, his friend greets him with a cheerful good morning, and then asks why he seems more stressed than usual. Even after he explains that he's going shopping with Chihaya, he don't grasp his concern, unaware of the family curse that haunts her, which is the real source of Hodaka's anxiety. As they are talking, Hodaka suddenly bumps by Tsubakita, a notorious troublemaker at school. Instead of apologizing, Tsubakita scolds him and walks away, laughing wickedly while calling him a loser. Seeing this, Hodaka's friend, fuming with anger, informs him that Tsubakita is always teasing other students, but this time he intentionally targeted Hodaka. Our boy calmly reassures his friend that he's fine, deciding to brush off the incident as he prepares for the real challenge of meeting Chihaya. He recalls the previous day, he gently holds her and smiles, admitting that he initially had no idea he'd be transformed into a girl. To ease her worries, he lies, saying it was actually kind of fun. Although he doesn't truly believe it, he adds that seeing her father turn into a woman made him think about what might be possible. For her happiness, he insists that turning into a girl has no downsides, so there's no reason for them to break up. As Chihaya listens, her eyes fill with tears of deep emotion and affection. Even though he doesn't want to say it, he reassures her that becoming a girl after kissing her is like hitting two birds with one stone. Seeing his affection, she starts crying uncontrollably, overwhelmed with relief. She admits that the thought of him being in pain or stressed was unbearable, which is why she wanted to break up with him. Moved by her tears, Hodaka decides to let fate take its course and thanks her for caring so much. Watching her cry like a child, he finally hugs her tightly, holding her as she sobs on his shoulder. While embracing her, he realizes he lied just to comfort her, and though he doesn't know how to lift the curse, he silently prays for forgiveness, determined to stay by her side. Noticing she's crying like a baby, Chihaya steps back and, with a laugh, apologizes for being so emotional. She then playfully teases Hodaka, saying she didn't realize he wanted to be a girl. Finally, she surprises him by insisting that since they're in a relationship and he'll be in a girl's form, he should buy some women's items. Hearing this, Hodaka holds his head in frustration, dreading the thought of shopping for women's stuff. At present, they sit on the stairs, and Chihaya tells Hodaka that her family runs the store so he can get a discount, though he's still uneasy about buying women's items. She then shifts the conversation, asking if he really wanted to be a girl, as he mentioned earlier. To his surprise, she asks if he's ready to permanently transform into a girl like her father. This makes Hodaka visibly tense, as he's not prepared for such a change. With a sad expression, Chihaya reveals that if they continue their relationship, there's a risk he could permanently become a girl. Shocked, Hodaka loudly expresses his concern, making Chihaya worry that he doesn't want to continue their relationship. But blushing and puzzled, he reassures her that he does want to, just when the time is right. After much confusion, hesitation, and tension, they decide to hold off on deepening their relationship to avoid the risk of his transformation until Chihaya can research more about it. With a sorrowful face, she tells him she'll ask her mother for more information. Though worried and emotional at first, Hodaka smiles and tells her he's happy to be her boyfriend. It's more than he ever dreamed of. After leaving Chihaya and returning to class, Hodaka reflects on how he wants to deepen their relationship. But then he thinks about her beauty and long eyelashes, deciding he's content just by thinking of her, so he chooses not to disappoint her. As he is walking, he hides behind the building, overhears Tsubakita and his gang talking about him, using harsh words, calling him weird, and saying he has no sense of speaking. One of them even questions if Hodaka has any emotions, while another mentions that during their first year, Hodaka couldn't even look people in the eyes while talking. The group is taken aback when, with great anger, Tsubakita reveals that Hodaka is dating Shishizaki. Their reactions are filled with disbelief, and they start saying she deserves someone better. They insult Hodaka, saying he lacks the attention she brings and shouldn't be with her. They even begin to speak badly about Shishizaki, suggesting she either has a thing for freaks or treats boys like pets. Furious, Hodaka steps out from behind the building, and with a sharp voice and anger in his expression, defends Shishizaki, declaring she's not like that. The bad guys turn their anger on him, scolding him for eavesdropping. They also berate him for being involved with Shishizaki, while Tsubakita glares at him, telling him to leave since he heard everything they said. After leaving the bad guys, Hodaka sits angrily on the classroom floor, realizing that staying with Shishizaki might harm her social status. He decides to end the relationship for her sake and worries about how to break the news to her. Just then, Shishizaki slides open the classroom door, holding her bag, and cheerfully urges him to hurry so they won't be late for shopping. Her radiant smile makes Hodaka forget his troubles, and he agrees to go. Seeing his downcast expression, Shishizaki becomes worried and asks if he's feeling unwell. When Hodaka hesitates to share his feelings, she approaches him with a playful warning, saying she'll give him a peck if he doesn't open up, as she's seen in videos. Surprised and disoriented by her close proximity and sweet scent, Hodaka is taken aback. Before he can respond, Shishizaki softly kisses him, and he immediately transforms into a girl. After transforming into a girl, Shishizaki offers Hodaka a skirt borrowed from a family member. Though hesitant and feeling embarrassed, he puts it on. Shishizaki beams with excitement, her eyes shining as she admires how great the skirt looks on him. Despite feeling uncomfortable and frustrated, especially with how short the skirt is and how exposed his legs are, Hodaka now understands how amazing women are to wear such things. Though he feels a strange discomfort, he resolves to get used to it for Shishizaki's sake. However, as he recalls the harsh words spoken by the bad guys about them, he becomes a bit depressed but decides to ignore those thoughts and focus on the present. While in the ladies' section of the market, Hodaka blushes with embarrassment, unable to even glance at the items around him. Feeling overwhelmed, he tells Shishizaki to quickly pick something without trying it on so they can leave, as he's too embarrassed to stay there any longer. Hodaka is shocked when Shishizaki informs him that a saleswoman will come to check if the items fit him properly. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, he adamantly refuses to stay any longer. Seeing his discomfort, Shishizaki offers to handle the fitting for him, knowing how awkward he feels. He tries to select something himself, but ends up trembling with embarrassment, eventually asking her to choose for him since he has no idea what to pick. After several attempts, they finally find something that fits him perfectly. The experience leaves Hodaka exhausted, as he realizes how serious getting fitted for women's clothing can be, far more effort than he's used to with his grandfather simply buying his clothes. As they continue shopping, Hodaka blushes frequently, embarrassed by the process. During their conversations, Shishizaki shares that when someone wears something that makes them feel cute for someone they care about, it brings happiness and boosts confidence. With a bright smile, she reveals that it acts like a good luck charm for her. She then mentions spotting an item in a color she thinks will suit him and suggests he wait while she retrieves it. As she walks away, Hodaka reflects on her words with emotion. When she returns with a black outfit, he smiles, genuinely liking the item she chose for him. In the trial room, as Hodaka holds the outfit, he thinks about how much Shishizaki likes it for him, which makes him appreciate it too. When she knocks and asks if he's done trying it on, he allows her to enter. Upon seeing him, she bursts with excitement, her eyes shining with happiness. She admires the color, and after adjusting the material on him, smiles and tells him how pretty it looks on him. Feeling embarrassed, Hodaka jokes that it's like he's made some personal growth in a weird way, which makes them both laugh. Shishizaki joins in the laughter, lightening the moment. As Hodaka watches Shishizaki admire him, he smiles and confesses his love for her. She smiles back, telling him he looks beautiful. Then, with a thoughtful expression, she asks him to sit down, confusing him. She explains that he looks so adorable, even in his girl form, that she wants to kiss him. Despite his concerns about being in a changing room, she reassures him that it's her relative's store, so there's nothing to worry about. Ignoring his hesitation, she gently touches him. After shopping, as they walk home together, Shishizaki appears thoughtful, sensing that something about Hodaka has changed. The next day at school, Hodaka encounters Subakita in the nurse's office, where it seems he's skipping class. Ignoring Subakita's annoyed and angry expression, Hodaka starts to talk about the harsh opinions of his group from the previous day. When Subakita remains unresponsive, dismissing the issue, Hodaka earnestly admits that he's aware he doesn't have many friends and struggles to read social cues. He also knows people might not see him as the ideal boyfriend for Shishizaki, but with unwavering confidence and devotion, he declares that he loves her more than anyone else in the school. Despite Subakita's growing irritation, Hodaka, with a cheerful and determined smile, challenges him to watch as he proves he's the perfect match for her. This only fuels Subakita's frustration, leading him to angrily shout that he doesn't care about watching them. Realizing his mistake, Hodaka apologizes, agreeing that if he were in Subakita's place, he wouldn't want to watch either. But with renewed determination, he explains that his main reason for approaching Tsubakita was to assure him that he's committed to becoming the perfect match for Shishizaki. Tsubakita, with a sinister grin, simply tells him to keep his mouth shut. With an irritated sigh, Tsubakita places his hand on his head and mentions that he'd heard from a few people that Hodaka is weird and awkward. Hodaka, smiling, readily agrees and encourages him to say anything he wants to his face rather than behind his back because he won't take it personally. However, with deep devotion, he adds that if anyone dares to batten off Shishizaki, calling her scary or weird, he will step in and defend her without hesitation. He calmly warns Tsubakita that if he or his gang says anything bad about her, he'll confront them directly. He then hopes that Tsubakita understands his intentions. Tsubakita, initially making a strange face at Hodaka, eventually smiles with frustration and tells him he gets the message, advising Hodaka not to bother him anymore. Hodaka smiles and thanks Tsubakita for understanding his intentions, then wishes him a nice day before sprinting away. As Tsubakita watches him run off with a puzzled expression, he mutters to himself in frustration, confused as to why Hodaka approached him just to issue a warning. He wonders whether Hodaka knows about his ill intentions towards Shishizaki, or if there's something else. Feeling a bit shaken and even finding Hodaka somewhat intimidating, Tsubakita tries to calm himself, dismissing the encounter as a mere coincidence. However, he mentally challenges Hodaka, vowing that next time he won't back down so easily. After leaving Tsubakita, Hodaka heads to the school hall, where he spots Shishizaki adjusting her hair while gazing into a hand mirror. With a warm smile, she waves at him, and he eagerly hurries over to meet her. While lying on his bed at nurse's office, Tsubakita drifts off to sleep, mulling over his strange meeting with Hodaka. Unaware of anything amiss, he continues to sleep soundly. Meanwhile, a girl stands by the window, drawing back the curtains. When Tsubakita awakens, he feels a strange touch and sees the time, realizing the 6th period has already ended. Shocked, he notices his hand has become delicate and feminine. As he fully wakes, he is stunned to find that he has completely transformed into a girl. After waking up in the nurse's station, Tsubakita is shocked to find himself transformed into a girl due to a curse from Shishizaki's family. When his friends knock on the door to ask him to go home, they're surprised to see a girl and assume she must be Tsubakita's girlfriend. They curiously ask why she's wearing his clothes, but a panicked Tsubakita, sweating and flustered, quickly dashes away. Hiding behind the school building, Tsubakita tries to make sense of his new, unfamiliar body, which feels soft and uncomfortable. Embarrassed by his high-pitched voice, he angrily shouts at some curious students to leave him alone, only to realize his voice doesn't sound intimidating at all. As more students gather, noticing his bare feet, he hurriedly hides behind the stairs, sneezing from the cold floor, realizing this isn't a dream. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Hodaka is trying to figure out where to hide the girlish clothes in his bag. After considering and rejecting the idea of using a student locker, he decides to keep the bag with him. As he's lost in thought, he's jolted by the presence of a mysterious girl at the door. She hypnotizes him with her gaze, kisses him unexpectedly, and then runs off, urging him to follow her. Back at Tsubakita's hiding spot, he notices Hodaka running down the corridor, clearly chasing someone. Hodaka spots Tsubakita and, despite his disbelief, recognizes him immediately. Tsubakita tries to deny it, but Hodaka insists he knows because he, too, was transformed into a girl. When Tsubakita anxiously asks if everything will be okay, Hodaka reassures him, though Tsubakita playfully doubts his confidence. Hodaka then suggests they meet Shishizaki in the classroom, which confuses Tsubakita, who doesn't understand the connection. Frustrated, Tsubakita says he can't stand up like this, and when Hodaka offers to carry him, he angrily refuses to be treated like a girl. Hodaka then offers him a jersey to cover his girlish figure. Feeling emotional and guilty, Tsubakita thanks him softly. Hodaka advises him to cover up whenever he transforms into a girl, which only adds to Tsubakita's frustration. In the classroom, Shishizaki is searching for Hodaka when she hears his voice. She turns around and is shocked to see him holding a girl in his arms. Tsubakita, equally embarrassed, reacts awkwardly, as Shishizaki begins to tremble with disbelief and anger. He quickly explains that the girl is actually Tsubakita. He then tells her about the transformation, worrying that he might have said too much, but Shishizaki reassures him that it's okay. Tsubakita interrupts, sharing that he was sleeping in the nurse's room when he dreamed a cute girl kissed him. And then he woke up like this. He asks if the girl was Shishizaki, but Hodaka, frustrated, clarifies that not every cute girl is Shishizaki. Just then, the girl who kissed Hodaka enters the room and reveals the curse of Shishizaki's family. Shishizaki, recognizing her as Mashiro, her cousin, scolds her for dragging others into the curse. Mashiro, unrepentant, explains that she kissed Subakita while he was sleeping, fully aware of the consequences. Shishizaki angrily warns her about the serious consequences of spreading the curse, but Mashiro, with a mischievous smile, declares that their cursed family will tear everything apart. Shishizaki, deeply saddened by Mashiro's words, questions her motives. Mashiro, showing no remorse, admits that she feels trapped by the curse, unable to love freely. Subakita, overwhelmed by the conversation, asks whose fault his transformation is, Shishizaki's or Mashiro's. Mashiro, with a sly smile, challenges him to believe her, threatening to kiss more students and turn them into girls. Shishizaki, watching Mashiro with a mix of confusion and sympathy, begins to fear that the curse has driven her cousin to madness. As Mashiro decides to demonstrate the family curse on other students to convince Tsubaki, Shishizaki, with a tense expression, tries to stop her. But it's clear Mashiro won't be swayed. Hodaka, in a calm and expressionless manner, proposes a deal. If Mashiro's true aim is to prove the curse, Shishizaki should kiss him. If he transforms into a girl, he'll believe her. Intrigued and happy, Mashiro agrees, even expressing a desire to see Hodaka in his transformed state. Meanwhile, Tsubaki watches in utter disbelief. Hodaka then apologizes to Shishizaki for involving her without asking first, explaining that he's worried about Mashiro dragging other students into this curse. Shishizaki, feeling helpless as nothing, while Mashiro watches the scene unfold with a look of amazement. As the tension between Hodaka and Shishizaki builds, they awkwardly inch closer, blushing and hesitant in front of everyone. Sensing their discomfort, Mashiro comments on how hard it is to watch and drags Tsubaki away, suggesting they wait in the hall until Hodaka transforms. Tsubaki, anxious, begs Hodaka not to leave him alone with Mashiro as he doesn't trust her. Ignoring his pleas, Mashiro drags him out and shuts the door behind them. The classroom falls into a tense silence as Hodaka and Shishizaki face each other, both struggling with the awkwardness of the situation. Their blushing faces and hesitant gazes only heighten the tension. When Hodaka looks into her eyes, he feels an overwhelming emotion and steps closer, gently touching her. To break the seriousness, Hodaka jokes that she should kiss him before he dies and sees his life flash before his eyes. Then, in a louder voice, he adds that he might even ascend to Buddhahood, which sends Shishizaki into a fit of uncontrollable laughter. She finds his mention of Buddhahood hilarious and admits that no one has ever spoken to her like that. Noticing his blushing face, she also admits she has no idea what rotoscope means. Seeing her laugh, Hodaka smiles and reassures her that despite her family's curse, he doesn't find it repulsive because they raised her to smile so gently. He believes that a family that raised someone like her couldn't possibly be horrible. Shishizaki, eyes wide with emotion, thanks him and admits that Hodaka is the reason she smiles. She explains that when he learned about her family's curse, he not only accepted her, but also grew to love her, her home, and even her lineage. Looking down, Shishizaki adds that if Hodaka had lost his memory and broken up with her because of the curse, she might have considered her family horrible. But now, with his support and protection, she feels she can be someone worthy of praise. Grateful, she holds his hand and thanks him. Moved by her words, Hodaka bows deeply, thanking her for loving him, and wonders if he really played a small part in her happiness. The thought overwhelms him. Shishizaki then shifts the conversation, expressing concern for Mashiro. She reveals that something tragic happened to Mashiro's family a few years ago, leading to her sudden disappearance. Sadly, she suggests that the curse might have changed Mashiro, as she was once a kind and timid girl. Worried, Shishizaki suggests they go to the roof to talk to Mashiro about it, without noticing that he has love feeling in his eyes for her. As Shishizaki runs out of the room, Tsubaki, who is waiting outside, for looking his transformation into a girl, asks Hodaka why he hasn't transformed into a girl yet. Irritated, Hodaka tells him to stop interrupting, admitting that he genuinely wanted to kiss Shishizaki this time, but she left without noticing his feelings. Upon arriving at the roof, Mashiro immediately notices Hodaka and teases him for not having transformed into a girl yet. With a concerned expression, Shishizaki responds that she won't blindly follow her instructions, as there seems to be a deeper meaning behind her actions. Mashiro, with a playful attitude, mocks her for always being so serious. Ignoring the taunt, Shishizaki presses her for the truth, asking if her real intention is to break free from Shishizaki's family curse. She also expresses confusion over how Mashiro has changed since they were younger and asks if she needs Shishizaki's help. Seeing Shishizaki's concern, Mashiro finally speaks up, revealing that her only goal is to tear Shishizaki's family apart. When Shishizaki asks why, Mashiro, with an emotional expression, explains that as long as the curse exists, she won't destroy the family herself. Instead, she wants Shishizaki to be the one to unravel it. Frustrated, Shishizaki demands to know what the purpose of this is. Mashiro, filled with sorrow, explains that while Shishizaki may have just learned about the curse, she has been able to live a relatively trouble-free life because she doesn't fully understand its true extent. Then she turns to Tsubaki, who is still confused, questions whether the curse is even real. He, exasperated, clarifies that it's not about believing or not, rather it's about understanding. He insists that he knows her actions aren't a joke, pointing out that his body is already transforming into a girl. Frustrated, Tsubaki further adds that he doesn't believe in her all instructions, but before he can say more, Mashiro quickly grabs him by the collar and kisses him, asking if he remembers the last time she did this. Hodaka and Shishizaki watch in shock as Tsubaki recalls being with her in the nurse's office, blushing with confusion. With boldness, Mashiro informs him that next time she will ensure he's fully conscious when she touches him. Then she turns to Shishizaki and questions how much she truly knows about the curse, beyond the gender swapping after a kiss. She asks if they kissed each other yet, and when they proceed further, the consequences will be severe, leaving both Hodaka and Shishizaki in utter shock. Their eyes meet in confusion before quickly looking away. Angrily, Shishizaki demands Mashiro stop asking such invasive questions. Mashiro, amused, begins to laugh and warns Shishizaki that if she's waiting for a magical solution to the curse, she'll be waiting forever. Mashiro continues, warning that despite the curse, if they decide to stay together, they have only two choices. Either Shishizaki should break up with Hodaka, or she must accept that he will turn into a girl permanently. Seeing the concern on their faces, she adds that although they still struggle to find the right moment to kiss, progressing further in their relationship will bring even more dangerous changes to Hodaka. As she speaks, all three stare at her in disbelief. Noticing Shishizaki's shocked expression, she concludes that Shishizaki has no idea about the major consequences of the curse, as her parents never informed her. The revelation leaves both boys trembling. Mashiro further explains that despite their deep love, the consequences of their contact will prevent them from having a healthy relationship, and this tension will always be present. She tries to scare Hodaka, asking if he's content to stay at this point in their relationship and doesn't want to move forward, adding more frightening details in an attempt to make him break up with Shishizaki. After hearing her words, Hodaka looks at Mashiro, then closes his eyes in sadness. However, when she pushes him for a decision, asking if he still loves Shishizaki despite knowing all the harsh realities, he suddenly opens his eyes. Placing a comforting hand on Shishizaki's shoulder, who is bowing her head hopelessly, he smiles and thanks Mashiro for her concern and warnings. With confidence, he declares that he knows their relationship is different from others and asks Mashiro if she truly wants them to break up. Looking into her eyes, he expresses his feelings, stating that if he doesn't have Shishizaki in his life, he doesn't want anything else. As she listens with an emotional expression, Hodaka recalls the time she tried to break up with him due to the curse, reassuring her that he vowed to be the man worthy of her, and despite Mashiro's warnings, those words still hold true. He admits that while he wants to move forward in their relationship, he also wants to remain a worthy man for her. He passionately declares that the curse doesn't matter to him. What worries him more is the thought of her not smiling or being with him. If she were to break up with him, he would wish the world would end before tomorrow comes. Finally, he bows and firmly states that he won't break up with her because of this curse, urging her not to worry about their future. As he gazes into Shishizaki's eyes, he confesses that even if they can't kiss or touch, as long as she's with him, tomorrow will always be a new day. He then declares his desire to move forward with her. Moved by his heartfelt devotion, Mashiro turns to Tsubaki, admitting that Hodaka's resolve is truly scary. Tsubaki, agreeing with her, smiles and assures Mashiro that Hodaka meant every word he said. Seeing Shishizaki's emotional face, Hodaka quickly apologizes for not asking about her feelings and focusing solely on his thoughts. But before he can say more, she tightly hugs him, leaving him curious. She then asks him to call her Chihaya and confesses her deep love for him. They gaze into each other's eyes, overcome with emotion, and kiss, deciding that their relationship will be special, beyond any curse. Watching them, Tsubaki crosses his arms, shocked that seeing Hodaka transform into a girl is less surprising than how boldly he kissed Shishizaki without caring about others watching. He also remarks that even in his transformed state, Hodaka looks like a model. Meanwhile, standing by the railing with her hands on her cheeks, Mashiro feels it's unfair that Shishizaki always gets what she wants. However, with an evil smile, she decides to hit back even harder, believing that the deeper Shishizaki's feelings, the stronger the curse will be. Mashiro is determined to see whether love or the curse will ultimately win.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.